All right, so good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second session of SGO Virtual IBC 2020. Many thanks for joining us today. My name is Eva Panyan, and I'm Marketing Manager at SGO. Today's session will be focusing on how to overcome the most common challenges when designing, finishing, and media content delivery workflows for streaming services such as Netflix, YouTube, Instagram, and others with Mistika Boutique and DVO tools for Mistika. I'm super excited to welcome Björn Lantz, product specialist from Digital Vision World, who has been in the restoration and image enhancement industry for 26 years. He has held many trainings and classes in film restoration and MPEG pre-mastering field. Hi Björn, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Hi. Oh, I'm very good, thank you, Eva. We're excited about this event, and thank you for this invitation.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah.
Also on the panel is our SGO Mistika Boutique product manager, Adrian Gonzalez-Diaz, who I guess most of you already know. Well, for the ones who are joining us for the first time, Adrian is SGO demo artist and training mentor, and he regularly collaborates with our development team, defining, designing, and implementing new features and Mistika products. So just before we dig into the presentation, I would recommend you to make your Zoom window full screen for a better viewing experience. Also at the end, we'll open some time for the Q&A. So please place your questions in the Q&A panel you can find in the lower section of Zoom screen. Also, just a note, some of the image adjustments that we'll be showing today might get lost due to the compression of Zoom streaming. So we prepared a dedicated landing page where you can see the examples that we'll be showing in the demo. I'll paste you the link in the chat in just some moments. All right, so Björn and Adrian, why don't we start with highlighting some of the most common issues that content creators face during the finishing and delivery processes for streaming services?
Yeah, well, one of the things that's quite common nowadays, going to Netflix, etc., is things like dead pixels, or if you have to deliver in a low bit rate, so you get bit starvation, compression artifacts, and things that can really be an issue.
Yeah, I totally agree with Björn. I would add to that the need of rendering to different resolutions as well, depending on the platform that you are going to use for uploading the media, especially the internet platforms, which change quite a lot and considering resolutions. If we talk about, for example, social networks like Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube, if we consider YouTube as a social network as well, the three of them has a really different resolutions, and you need to manage every version for each resolution and aspect ratio. So you basically need to address that as well at the beginning of the production and during the whole finishing post-production part.
Yes, of course. So why don't we have a look on how we can use DVO tools for Mistika and other Mistika's internal tools to improve the whole finishing and delivery process. Adrian, I think the best way to start would be to first show how the DVOs actually work inside Mistika.
Yeah, because that's I think that the first issue that you find when you work with external tools to the software that you're using, in this particular case, Mistika Boutique, is the fact that you need to see how to integrate those external tools with the native or the internal tools of the software. And one of the main aspects in Mistika was always the idea of managing every part of the post-production in an integrated way using the same interface. And we use the same logic with external plugins as well. So even if you use external tools, like in this case, we're going to use here the Filmwork, the DVO plugins for showing all the possibilities that we have for in the finishing area with these tools. the way that they work is basically like normal effects. So I can just put any effect on top of any of my clips, and I can integrate those effects with the internal effects in Mistika, which at the end is really efficient because I'm still using the main canvas or the main interface part of Mistika, which is the time space here, and I can use it for managing every effect, no matter if it's internal or external, and use all the features that I have in the time space with those tools as well. So you will see that the management of these effects is quite simple and quite efficient in Mistika Boutique as well.
Okay, so that seemed pretty straightforward. Now let's see some of these tools in action. Why don't we start with Brickwall, for example? Bjorn, can you tell us a little bit more about this tool? What are its benefits and for what reasons it is normally used in real production?
Sure. Brickwall was originally made to manage or be a pre-mastering tool for MPEG compression. So it's a high frequency cutoff, and depending on how you turn the filter, you can turn it to just this discrete cosinus transform that is used in all MPEG and AVC codecs, etc. To help that one to achieve a better result of its encoding by just helping the mathematical algebra being done there. Mm-hmm. It's also very useful anytime you have disturbing high frequencies. This could be things like mosquitoing from old video transfers, or if you have drone footage, which sometimes comes in very high frequency and so on. So yeah, it can help in a lot of situations.
All right, so we're going to see in this part, the first part of the presentation, how to use these tools in Mistika Boutique. We're going to start with Brickwall, and then we will move to other tools from the Digital Vision suite. As Bjorn said, the Brickwall is really useful to remove this can let me disable, so you will see it clearly in the webpage that we have shared with you. You will have a more detailed view of this part of the demo. Basically, as you can see, we have these artifacts, these vertical artifacts in our image, and we need a specific tool to fix that, and Brickwall works really well with it. So for example, once we apply the effect, as you can see, we have applied like a normal effect. It's now disabled because the moment that you enable it, you will see that automatically is basically almost fixing the problem. We still have the vertical issue visible here, but it's less obvious. Maybe because of the compression of zoom, you cannot see it at this point, but it's still there. So I'm going to change the filter type from rectangular to rectangular sharp to make the cutoff sharpen. And in that way, I just remove almost completely the problem here. And the final step for this specific shot would be like to increase the vertical cutoff frequency, which affects the horizontal. Is basically using the high frequency in horizontal to remove the issue. So I'm going to increase it to 100, and now is completely fine. So as you can see, just applying the effect, it was almost immediate. I just get a perfect result by applying the effect and just controlling a couple of parameters. So it's really nice what this tool can do with this kind of complex situations where you have these or compression artifacts or these vertical artifacts because of the frequency, etc. So that's really nice. Now from here, we will move to another plugin that I'm quite sure that all of you suffer this problem quite a lot of times, which is the chromatic aberration in the shots. So if I take a look to this, first I'm going to remove, we have the same situation that we had in the previous shot, so we need to remove it with Brickwall. You're going to see it how in this presentation, I'm adding more effects in each shot to remove every specific problem that we have. But as you can see, we have this chromatic aberration over there. And that's a really common situation. So the first thing, as I said, I'm going to remove just with the Brickwall this first problem, and then we will move to the DVO Chroma to remove the chromatic aberration. So I'm going to put here DVO Brickwall first, and I'm going to use the same settings that I used in the previous shots because I know perfectly well that it works really nice. So rectangular sharp and in vertical 100, right? And as you can see, we have this problem here, the chromatic aberration problem. Now, removing chromatic aberration needs to be done with a specific tool for that, because if you try to do, for example, I don't know, the internal color tool of any software, trying to key this kind of problem and remove it, you will affect the overall look of the image, and you don't want that. What you want to do is basically removing this problem and keep the original look of the shot to make the rest of the post-production process, like the grading, compositing, the finishing at the end, right? So I'm going to apply on top of it the DVO chroma. And as you can see, by just only applying, I'm just reducing the problem quite a lot. It's not completely removed, but it's almost gone. And that's really nice, because again, it's like the DVO brick wall. I just apply it, it just works, it just removes the problem, and it's keeping the overall look of my shot completely intact. If I just disable here, you won't see anything, you won't see any change, because it's basically not changing the overall color of the shot. Now, just to make it a bit stronger so you can see it clearly, because of the compression of zoom, and just to increase the value of the strength, and just to remove these areas here that still have that problem, that's just going from 0.1 to 0.5. And there you go. Now, those areas have been, the problem in those areas has been removed completely. So now here is gone. This is the original situation. So as you can see, it's really simple just to remove this issue from the images. All right. And now let's take a look to the final example for this first part of the presentation, which is the dead pixels. All right, dead pixels is another common problem that you have. The main difference for me as an operator compared with these first two plugins is that dead pixels can be applied, or this tools to remove dead pixels can be applied at the beginning of the process or at the end of the process, depending of the kind of workflow that you are following. The reason why I can debate if I want to apply it before or after is because it needs to analyze the whole shot. So you will notice that from the performance. So you need to consider, depending on the project that you have, where to apply this effect. In this particular case, I'm going to apply it after these two plugins here, because again, we still have the same problem that we had in the previous shots. So we have the vertical problem. We will have a little bit as well of chromatic aberration here, etc. So I'm going to first apply the DVO brick wall, make the same. Well, in fact, let me just copy and paste, because I can, as I said, I can just use the same settings and the same features that I have in the time space for my external plugins. So with the first one, I'm just disable the brick wall. With the DVO chroma, I'm disable the chromatic aberration, as we can see in here. Right, and now I'm going to enable the dead pixels to basically find those dead pixels and fix them. So let me add the dead pixel plugin on top of it. Okay, and now I'm going into the shot. If it takes a few seconds, it's because it's analyzing the whole shot, and it will remove all the dead pixels automatically. It works like the other tools. The moment that you apply it over the clip, it will remove the problems. All right. So let me enable the burn overlay that we have in here, just to see in which area the software is finding, the tool is finding these dead pixels. So again, it's analyzing, and it will put, there you go, the overlay over it. If I make zoom in here, you won't see anything, because again, the tool is fixing the problem already. But if I disable it, you will see those small dots there. Let me enable it again, so we can find another area like this one. I'm just finding like a solid colors, like blue, the blue sky, because it's easier to see it. But it's everywhere really. You have here a white point there as well, another one here, another one there. So basically we have dead pixels everywhere. And automatically, once you apply it, without touching any parameter in here, the DVO pixel tool fix it in just one go. So it's really nice to just clean your shots automatically, or at the beginning of the process, or if you want at the end, just to be sure that your project, for example, passed the QC, which normally use dead pixel detection tools. So in that way, you you will be sure that your project passed all the QC and review process. So this is the first introduction for these three tools from Digital Vision.
So Bjorn, can you add us a little bit information on these tools, please?
Definitely, definitely. Well, starting with the chroma, you saw it work with the chromatic aberration or color fringing that comes from a problem with the lens, more or less. So you do get can get some spread out colors, more or less. So, and it works very well, and that's what we designed it for. But it's also very useful for other things. If your material is coming from a Bayer camera, you will notice in very high contrast parts of the picture that you will have color fringing in pixel level. So applying DVO chroma on that will automatically make you very nice and clean, even in those things, and can be used whenever you got some issue with a chroma or the color. You can usually try it, and it usually fixes it, so you can be happy grading with it. Then we have DVO Pixel. As he mentioned, he's sort of analyzed it, so you go through your sequence and finds things that it does good, and it could be anything. Like sometimes you even have what we call like zombie pixels or things like that. They come and go, so they're not necessarily be present on every frame, but they can be there. Or sometimes they're just in the red channel or something. But we do look after all those situations that can be.
Great. So Adrian, you can continue now maybe with the clarity.
Absolutely. All right. So Digital Vision has a really nice tool for removing noise, which is basically the DVO Clarity tool. One of the most important aspects from the Digital Vision tools, compared with other tools that you can find in the market, is that they always try to preserve the original texture of the image. You never change it quite a lot to break it, to break the overall look or to break the texture, etc. So it applies in a really smart and nice way, you know, without breaking the overall look again of the image. All right. So for example, in this particular case, we have a telescene shot, and as you can see, it's really noisy. Let me enable the blue channel, which is more obvious. There you go. We have the blue channel here, and you see all this noise. All right. So I'm going to apply the DVO Clarity on top of it. All right. So DVO Clarity. And this automatically, like other plugins automatically, it removes quite a lot the noise in there. I recommend you to take a look to the webpage that we have shared with you guys, because it's much more obvious there. But if I just enable and disable, we can just see here, let me zoom in, that is basically making a quick, a really nice adjustment on top of it. I will increase the amount and the aggressiveness just to make it more obvious because of the streaming compression. But again, normally with these values and just playing around with 0.6, maybe 0.8, etc., you get a really nice results. But just in this particular case, I'm going to increase it to 1, aggressiveness maybe as well to 1, just to make it more obvious. All right. Okay, so as you can see, I'm going to enable and disable. There you go. Now there is removing quite well the noise. But the great thing is it's not affecting the texture of the image. It's kept really well. It's not making any distortion or softening too much the image, even with the bigger value. Again, this is not the normal values that you will apply if you are like me in front of the screen, just viewing the real image. But even at the greatest value, you get a really nice picture. You get a really nice image, keeping all the texture and all the details and all the shadows and everything there. All right. So it's really nice. And the great thing is you can always combine this tool with other tools in Mistika. So for example, if you have a situation where you have maybe a color noise and you are removing the overall amount of noise with this tool, then you can apply, for example, a color grade on top of it there. And if I enable a vector scope, we have this noise around the main area of the colors, of the saturation type colors. And if I go to the chroma, I just enable the chroma. So in this way, I'm just working on the chroma of my image. I can go to the filter and just apply a little blur in the filter just to remove that kind of RGB noise that you can have in some shots. So this is probably not needed in this particular case, but it's really useful. The fact that you can combine external tools like the DVO Clarity with internal tools like the color grade to removing that kind of color noise, or even our own denoise, etc. So that's really, really nice.
Yeah, indeed. But obviously, you are now showing the use of the DVOs on very, simple examples. Can you show us a little bit project that would be more complex, more real life?
Sure. So just to show you how well integrated are those tools in Mistica's canvas in the time space. I have this small project there, and one of the main things that we have done is applying a DVO sharpen, which is an effect that we haven't seen in here in the first examples there, to add a little bit of sharpen to my shots in there. All right. Once I did it, I just apply a color grade on top of my shot, and now I can apply more tools in there. And again, this is an example of how can I combine the different tools between internal and external tools in Mistika. So for example, I can apply on top of all of them the clarity. I can, for example, I'm going to use one as an example and reduce a little bit of the noise by increasing the aggressiveness, the amount of the aggressiveness, etc. I'm just going to apply like several effects on some of them. Again, here we can even propagate that value on all of my shots. Let me propagate it. Propagate to current layer, and this will propagate that value to all my clarity. So again, I'm using the same tools that I use with internal tools, but adapted to external tools like the digital vision tools, right? I can combine this with any of our tools. So for example, apply an enhance option on top of some of my shots, or maybe, I don't know, a debanding option. Maybe if I need it, for example, to deliver it to a more to a social platform, to a social network, a platform like YouTube or Vimeo that compress quite a lot. So I apply my debanding. So I can just use any of those effects in a complex scenario like this one, and then I can even copy everything, like in this particular case, right? And I can use the same tool that I use for adapting internal tools in Mistika, which is the match and paste. I can just apply it in here, and it will work in the same way. So again, the fact that having the external tools completely integrated with internal tools in Mistika and with the main interface area, which is the time space, makes them quite a lot efficient and really simple to use for current users of Mistika.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Now, we were speaking about, DVO tools inside Mistika Boutique, but how about the integration with Mistika workflows? For everybody who doesn't know Mistika workflows, this is our media management, delivery, and transcoding application.
Yeah, well, because we always, Mistika Boutique, Mistika Workflows, and Mistika VR, although we are not talking about the software in this presentation, all of them share the same core technology, which is the Mistika technology. And for that reason, we can just move features from one software to another in a native way and without any issues and complications. So as I said, with the Dead Pixels plugin, for example, there can be reasons why where you can just study the fact that using it only at the end of your process instead of the beginning, all right? So, or maybe there are some filters like the debanding that you apply always at the end of your stack to remove that kind of problems. Well, if that's the case, if you need to apply one specific effect with one specific filters or one specific settings for with a collection of media that you need to render, you can use those filters as a display filters. And let me show you how to create a display filter. The display filter basically is like a preset that you create with any effect or any amount of effects for applying in your whole time space or in the media that you want. So for example, if I duplicate this shot. I always need a media as a base. It can be anything really. I can apply on top of it, for example, the DVO pixel, and I can just go in the shot and just create a new preset called, let me open here the display filters panel. It's analyzing the shot, there you go. So create display filter, and I can just create one display filter called depth pixel, right? And if I, for example, duplicate again another shot, I can create another one for debanding. I can combine both. I can create another one with both, but I'm just creating a couple of them, all right? So I can just go to the display filter and create one and call it debanding. Right? So once I created these presets, the great thing is these presets are located in a shared folder that can be used for any Mistika software. So if we jump to Mistika workflows, this Mistika workflow, we will make a presentation next week talking more in detail about this software. But basically, this is a transcoding media management and delivery software. I just created a really simple workflow here. I have a watch folder, so every time that I drop something in the folder that is used for this node, it will, every media that lands in there is transcoded to EXR. Now to this EXR, I can apply a display filter, and those display filters are the ones that I've created in Mistika Boutique. So I can just enable this panel here, and we have the debanding option, right? So every time that I put something in that folder, it will transcode to EXR, applying a debanding option. Maybe in EXR is not the most common situation, but if we create, for example, an H.264 for that media, the debanding option maybe makes more sense in there, because H.264 is going to compress quite a lot of the image, so we maybe have this problem. Maybe for the EXR we can apply the depth pixels display filter just to remove those depth pixels at the end or at the beginning of the process, depending if this EXR is going to be used as my original media for the finishing part, or as my master render. So as you can see, the integration between digital vision tools, Boutique, and workflow is perfect. I use only internal tools. Everything is integrated, and the whole workflow is really efficient and really easy to use.
Yeah, I mean, this sounds actually amazing, and it definitely saves you, quite a lot of time and preparing this kind of deliveries. Thank you very much, Adrian and Bjorn, for this very cool presentation. Just before we jump to the questions, I would like to mention that we have the evaluation versions of all of the softwares that you saw today. So for Mistika Boutique, DVO tools for Mistika, and also Mistika workflows available on our website. You can find direct links also on the landing page that I share with you guys. Okay, so if we start the Q&A maybe with you, Bjorn, can you tell us a little bit more about noise reduction? Do you think it should be used before or after color correction?
Yeah, well, that is something that's always being debated. But as the Clarity is the colorist's favorite tool, because you can use it anywhere, but using it ahead, because everyone who gets some material and it's been shot in low light or whatever, and when you want to push it, you can't push it because all you do is you get the huge amount of grain. But if you then can work with your grain management ahead of time, or noise management before grading, that means that you can much more easily push your grading skills and creating the build more like you want it. But also it's also useful to well, it's also easier if you put clarity on everything. It's easier to match the grades between, because you have a wider spectrum to work with. But of course, you can always use it like a display filter in order to just improve your average quality and looks, and use it as a texture builder, for instance, and that you can do post grading in order to before doing your final finishing. in that sense.
Great ideas, actually. Thank you. So the next question is, I think, for both of you. What would you consider are the most challenging or demanding streaming platforms to deliver media content?
If I would say one is like the major platforms like Netflix, HBO, etc. Basically, because those platforms demands like quite a lot of versions. They have a very strict protocol about delivering versions. If it's the graded version, the non-graded, if it's EXR or not, the one for quality control, etc. So basically, they demand quite a lot of versions, and with a very specific parameters for HDR content or resolution and color depth settings. So basically, they are really strict in those areas. That I guess is probably because they are that's the reason why they are the most demanding networks for me, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, those guys are picky. They're gonna watch what you're doing, so they will let you know if you're not up to speed. But anyway, you have other things like broadcasters. They also have very limited because they know what bitrate they're gonna do, etc., and so on. So yeah, so they always have to look into what the content's gonna be in the end, and they have more strict. So but they usually pick up what needs to be done in certain ways, and of course low res, small clips and things like that can always be tricky to look nice.
So the next one is referring to the first one. So which Mistika Boutique tools and DVO tools would you recommend using to simplify your finishing and media delivery workflow for these platforms that you just mentioned?
It's always depending of the project that you have, I guess. For me, all the tools that are useful from digital vision, for example, the sharpen tool, the DVO sharpen, or the clarity, etc. Those are like Bjorn said, I can understand why they are the favorite tools for the colorists, because it's the kind of tool that automatically improves the image. We have the Chroma and the Brickwell, which basically those two are more focused on removing problems. The other two can be used, clarity and sharpen, I mean, or even regrain as well. They can be used for aesthetic purpose. So for that reason, I can understand why those are useful for the grading part or the finishing part. Talking about Mistika tools, I guess, again, depends quite a lot of the project. Of course, the main one are the color grade, Com3D, etc. for the basic workflow. I really like the enhanced filter, for example, to create a micro contrast in some areas. The debanding is really useful when you need to deliver something that is compressed. So there are quite a lot of filters there that can be useful for the finishing as well. But it's not one specific tool that you say, okay, you need to use this one all the time, because it always depends, not only in the project, but even in the shot. So at the end, it's really open.
Sure, yeah, it's a combination of many different features at the end, and obviously depending on the project and then the platform where you have to, deliver the content.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and also, I mean, it's also depending on what one you want to achieve. So you have various things of Filmworks DVO tools that SGO has integrated, and you can have, for instance, if you want to build a texture, I mean, of course, clarity for even it out, sharpen to get the intensity you want, and then you have regrain to build a nice texture above it all to make it look the way you want it. That pixels, of course, if you have that pixels, it's a no-brainer, and so on. So, but the tools are there.
Absolutely. So the next question is, what would you say is a good practice for efficient content media management and delivery when working remotely? Very relevant question in these times.
I guess everything starts with with organizing your media and how to access to it. Especially, it depends as well on the complexity of the workflow. It depends if you need to communicate with departments that are not that are independent. If you are freelance and you can just manage almost everything, or you have a small company and there's no many people involved, I guess it's much more simple. If you have like different departments and you need to communicate with those departments, the first thing is where to organize the media so everyone can access to that media. Then later, from the finishing part, if you are the operator of Mistika in this case, I guess most of the job is going to be done locally, and then you will share all the renders and all the deliveries with the rest of the company or of the people involved in the project. And for that, I guess Mistika Workflows is really useful, because you can always upload the content to Aspera or to Signian or to FTP, send it to a Google Drive folder, for example. So basically, you have many options for delivering.
Of course, and even to Frame.io at the end,
Yeah.
It's also integrated to Mistika Workflows, and I think many people are actually, finding its advantages now when they have to find better ways of working remotely. So, automating these kind of processes, just to upload the media to FTP, or to send a notification by Slack or by email to your colleague that you finished some part. I think these are like really big time savers, and it lets you actually focus on your creative part of the job.
Absolutely.
So when you spoke about display filters, Adrian, in Mistika, is it possible to combine DVOs and Mistika internal effects?
Yeah, absolutely. I just did with just one effect in every display filter, but you can combine any amount of them. So for example, I can combine let's say the DVO Clarity, just as an example, right? So the DVO Clarity with maybe the denoise in there, and even in the debanding, I don't know. I'm just combining some, like creating a filter of removing possible problems, right? So I just need, again, one media. So I'm going to put it there, copy and paste just to have it on top of the media, and just select the top effect. So that will include the rest that is the rest of the effects that are below, and then just create the display filter, and I can just call it my restoring, for example, restore filter or whatever. And now I will have that filter there, restore filter here, which in this particular case, this will be applied to every shot that I put in my time space, and I can use it as well in workflows to apply that filter with all the media that you use for transcoding. The only thing is I normally don't combine quite a lot of effects when creating a display filter, but because there is a risk that at the end maybe it's like considering that, okay, all those effects together are going to work well with every shot. That's not normally the case. So it's normally much better to, okay, this shot needs a debanding. Okay, so apply a debanding. If this shot needs, or this amount, if this kind of shots require a dead pixels filter, I will apply the dead pixel filter. But I won't build like huge stacks of effects to apply to everything. But you can do it. You can absolutely do it.
All right, perfect. So the next one, the next question is also very, very actual. So talking about remote, what are remote options for color grading?
Well, this one has I can, I guess, anticipate that the next version we already have a streaming system in built in Mistika, so you can stream your signal to your client. What we have improved for the next version is how easy is that for any user, because in previous versions it was more like a technical thing. So you maybe if you didn't have technical people, or you don't have special technical knowledge about that particular part of the workflow, you probably will need our help to build that streaming option. Now is really simple. Everyone can use it. It's mostly clicking one button and you will have it. So we have we have improved that part quite a lot in the next version of Mistika in 10.1. As you can see, I'm using the 10.1 version here, which is not already in our download section, but it will be really soon. And that part improves quite a lot the streaming workflow with Mistika for not only for grading. It can be used for grading, but it can be used for any finishing task, because at the end, Boutique is a finishing solution that can be used for anything really.
Absolutely. I wouldn't reveal too much secrets about the new version, but yeah, we're very happy with the upgrades that are coming shortly. So we'll keep you posted. So the next question is for Bjorn. Bjorn, can you tell us what's the difference between doing noise reduction in RGB or YC?
Yeah, okay. So RGB is the way the media is captured. So either if you have film, you have your emotion layers, or if you have your film camera, they have sensors or for red, green, and blue, or layering, or whatever. So that is how the software sees it. It sees as an RGB. It likes to process like that. Human eye looks in black and white and color. So YNC is luminescent color, but the source is RGB. So like the Clarity, for instance, it's analyzed it separately in red, green, blue, and process it separately in red, green, blue. That means you don't have to convert it to the human eye color space, do your manipulation, and then convert it back. Because if you do that, you can sort of change values where you don't want to change it, because you have to do this conversion in between. But Clarity does work in the native format of the camera, for instance. And hence you can do all the details preserving without getting any smearing or ghosting in it. So.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And actually, the next question is very related to the denoise. So, Adrian, can you please show us Mistika's internal denoise effect with DVO Clarity plugin?
Yeah, that's one option. Maybe not the most common one, but you can combine both in order to get not maybe a better result, or maybe because if you have like a really complex situation and you need to remove quite a lot of noise, maybe the combination of the both of the two of them can be useful. So for example, in this particular case, let me see. Okay, we enable the blue. We have quite a lot of noise in there. I can just apply. Well, let me first change the resolution of this by just putting framing node on top, and just to remove those black bands over there. Okay, so let me increase it. Okay, I'm going to focus and move an offset X just to focus precisely here where I have more noise. Right, so we have this area there. I'm going to apply a clarity option first. DVO Clarity. This will remove quite a lot of noise in there. The reason why I'm using the clarity here is because it will remove quite a lot of noise, and then I will apply the denoise of Mistika. The denoise of Mistika use a combination of optical flow and blur to depending of the area where it's no, sorry, same word, not the denoise, where it's applied. So when Mistika finds movement, it will apply the blur. If the area is more static, it will apply the temporal denoise or the optical flow denoise. As you can see, we have here like a map of movement. The white areas are the areas where Mistika is finding movement of those pixels of those areas. The ones that are dark or directly black, those areas are more static, and in those areas Mistika will apply the temporal denoise. Now the great thing of using clarity before the denoise is our denoise is basically we are just cleaning the image, so we are removing the chance of getting artifacts because of the optical flow. Because when you apply optical flow, you always have the risk of creating artifacts depending on the complexity of the project, of the shot in this case. So by removing quite a lot of noise, we are as well removing the chances of get these kind of artifacts. So I'm I can apply the denoise in a safer, the Mistika denoise in a safer way. So I can select the combined and then maybe increase the frame to 5, and this will basically remove the overall noise, as you can see in here. Let me go to blue. So this was our original situation. This is with the denoise applied. As you can see, it always takes a few seconds because of the optical flow. There you go.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I'm using the clarity to create a first nice overall texture to my picture, and then apply the denoise to apply it in a stronger way, maybe. But again, I will use only this workflow in some specific scenarios.
Of course. All right. Well, thank you very much. I think we've answered all the questions, and we're right on time. It's 3/4 of an hour, and yeah. So I think we can call it here. Thank you very much, Bjorn and Adrian, for sharing your amazing knowledge with us. And of course, thank you all for joining us today. We still have 3 more IBC online sessions planned for the next week. You can have a look at the schedule clicking the link I pasted in the chat. So you can still join us on any other session that we're hosting next week. If you still haven't, and if you want to give DVO tools for Mistika and Mistika Boutique a try, head over to our website and download free trials. If you want to get in touch with us, feel free to do so through the social media. You can find us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Or you can also send us an email to marketing@sgo.s. Stay safe, everybody, and keep healthy, and hope to see you at the next session.